Guys, welcome. You've got Solve Migration All-Star Team, myself, Juliana, and we have a special guest today, Marcos, one of our clients from 2010, who's now a very good friend of mine, and we are at the beautiful Kira Beach in Gold Coast. Thank you for coming, Marcos, today.
Very welcome.
Special guest. So, what are we talking about today? What's the date?
What happened with the changes in the sponsorship?
A lot of exciting changes. So, Julie, do you want to give us
Good question. Well, lots of people have been asking about like those changes that happened 1st of July. No huge things have happened other than if you want to change employers, if you are working for a sponsor. So you could already do that before, but we went from 60 days to find another employer to 180 days. And the beauty of the new change is that during these 180 days, you can actually work for whoever you want while you're looking for another sponsor. So if you're stuck in a situation, and Juliana will confirm, we have a lot of clients in those situations that are stuck with an employer and they just stay there because, you know, it's my visa. Well, they can leave now and then find another sponsor, and during that time, work for whoever they want to be able to meet the financial...
in any position.
Exactly,
right?
that's exactly
so
right.
we,
any
like,
kind of work.
Juliana, obviously you're Brazilian and you manage a large volume of our Brazilian clients.
Yep.
How do you think that would help someone like Marcus? Obviously, Marcus, you're a citizen now, but who's on a 482, how would they help them if they're struggling at their job or they're suffering from some kind of bullying or abuse or something like that?
Well, I think it will be easier now for them to find, you know, another sponsor, or they have some time to think what they want to do. Because most of the time people, I just don't want to go anymore, don't want to go back to work. I probably need to go back to Brazil. And now they have the whole 180 days to find another sponsor, work during this time, so no financial hardship. And yeah.
So basically, to summarize, in the past, if you lost your job, what would happen is, even though you would have some time, usually 60 or 90 days, to find another employer, you wouldn't have the work rights. So we had some clients working cash, some clients not working.
Not working at all.
At all. And then you're on a ticking time bomb with this stress that your visa is expiring. So now, if you leave your job or you're fired, you have 6 months with full work rights to work in any job, not just your nominated occupation.
Yep.
So you have that time to prove to your employer. Or if you do decide to go home, you could at least work, save some money before you go home.
And you don't have to settle for any other employer, because I see clients that are like in a rush to find another sponsor. But with 6 months, it gives you that breathing space to find the right sponsor.
Yeah. It's just good to remember that if they change sponsorship, the sponsor one, they need to start the clock again, to apply for PR.
That's something that's very annoying. So we've heard rumors, and this is to all our clients that constantly call us, that they're going to get rid of that. So I've been doing this since 2008, and before the law only required you to be on with the same employer for 1 year, on a total of 2 years on a 482, but to apply for PR. Over the last 10 years or so, it's changed to that needing to be 2 years now with the same employer. So at the moment, let's say you lose your job 18 months in, you are going to have to do 2 years with the same employer. However, that might change, but that's how it is. Unless we do the 186 direct entry. So how would we do that? Let's say for like a chef or something. Like if someone built up the experience and they want to go direct entry instead of transitional.
Yeah, if they have 3 years with a new employer, we do a skills assessment, English 6 on IELTS, and then we can lodge direct entry instead.
So then they don't even need to be with the new employer for long?
No, yeah.
One thing I want to add, Adam, on what you were talking about, that annoying 2 years. If someone was sponsored on a 2 years visa and so close to when they were going to be able to transition, they need to change sponsor, they're going to have to renew that for it to have more time to get these 2 years. So that's additional cost, which is very annoying. So sometimes 186 direct entry could be a great option with the skill assessment and
actually, that's a very good point. So for example, you're just about to hit the right required work experience, you get screwed by your employer, he says, no, I don't want any more immigrants working for me. So then basically but you've got the time, you've got the 3 years full-time post-skill. So you've got now 6 months to work with the new employer, and then that new employer can just lodge a 186 direct entry with a skills assessment. We don't actually need to transfer the visa and spend the training levy, the nomination fees. And
yeah,
kind of
that's
thing.
true.
Yeah. Because you've built your work experience through the 482.
So Marcus, you know, as a applicant, how do you feel like? Because obviously you've been here a long time now. You were on a 482 like 15 years ago, maybe 14 years ago. Do you think that kind of law would help you now to, if you or one of your friends was on a sponsor visa?
Actually, I have friends complain about that, about the bosses and stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good thing for them.
So you can give good news to them. And
Yeah.
You want to make
good
people
news.
relax, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And so, look, moving on, like I think talking to you, Marcus, so you've been a client for us. So when did I first meet you?
2011, I think.
2011.
Wow.
Okay.
2011 first time.
And obviously, I was much slimmer back then. So a lot of things have changed.
No, you haven't changed. It's
I
all
haven't
good.
changed one bit. I know. Mirror. I put my old photo on the mirror and I look at it every day. So, what was the reason you came to us to solve your problem? Like, what was the reason?
So I was looking for someone to help me in the sponsorship,
Yeah.
and then I went to a lawyer.
Yeah.
I paid $160 for 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay.
Back then, that would have
And
been a
then
lot.
she said to me in 5 minutes that I had no chance.
That wasn't us. That wasn't me.
No,
It was
that
another
was a
one.
different company. And then after, the next week, somebody told me about you.
Yeah.
And then I went to see you, and then you said to me, no worries, my friend, we're gonna get your visa.
Yeah.
and then you stuck to
And
him.
I'm a citizenship
You're a
now.
citizen now.
Yeah.
So it's a success story.
Yeah. And then, do you feel that we were able to guide you in the correct way and manage the whole process?
100%, very happy about it.
Yeah.
That's why I recommend all my friends to you guys.
Yeah, fantastic. So just to clarify, so Julie and Juliana are in our Gold Coast office, but they manage clients all over Australia and the world. So you can book with them directly. They both speak English perfectly well. So Juliana was a lawyer in Brazil and a registered migration agent in Australia. She speaks Portuguese and English and has an Italian passport.
No, not yet.
So it's just Portuguese and English, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but Brazilian
now.
Portuguese and regular Portuguese.
And Portuguese, I can speak as well.
And Julie is French, but she speaks fluent French, Spanish, and English.
Yes, English.
And and is available online and in our Gold Coast office. Julie, besides being a migration agent, she's also admitted lawyer in Australia, and does a lot of also the tribunal work that we go through. Now, moving on, what have we got to expect? Like this landscape, it's crazy right now, isn't it? With the student visa rejections and the case. So one thing people are worried when we see them is, unlike before, obtaining a sponsorship or a partner visa, which is our main area. So we specialize in sponsor visas, partner visas, refugee visas, and complex appeals. Before they used to have an option, right? So they'll get to the end of their 485, or they'll go, okay, well, if I'm thinking of doing a sponsor, but I might do a student visa instead.
To get more time.
Yeah, but what's happening now with the student visas?
Yeah, now it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
It's really strict, the laws at the moment.
You can't anymore apply for a student visa post 485 as well.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
if you've got a 485, you cannot apply for a student visa. That
No.
cuts that out.
Yeah.
You can't apply from tourist visa to visitor visa, from visitor visa to student visa, if you are in Australia.
And also we've seen a lot of refusals in the Latin American market.
If you are
as
in
well.
COVID visa at the moment and apply for a student visa, it's very hard to
To get it
pass.
approved, yeah.
Yeah, super hard. What else?
And courses that used to be okay before, like diploma of leadership management, project management, marketing, business, I don't recommend this anymore because it's just being refused.
So you pretty
every
much
day.
have to go into like a master's or a high level course.
Yeah.
Bachelor. And also you need to match with the course if they got, like, for example, a bachelor back overseas in Brazil, let's say, and they want to they want to study a vet, they might not pass. And if they want to do a bachelor or a master, it needs to link with the qualification back in Brazil.
So what I find the problem is, so like unlike us, we don't have a student agency. We don't obtain money from commissions. The only reason we're involved in student visas is when people get refused to do the appeals.
Yep.
But a lot of other agencies and even law firms have a student agency. So a lot of the time when you're asking them what is the best advice for me to stay in Australia, they're actually selling you a course and framing that as an option because they're getting commission basically.
Yeah.
So that's something that a lot of the time when we meet, and I'm sure you experienced that, Marcus, that before you saw us, whoever you saw just said, oh, well, there's this course and that course, and you can become a chef, a childcare worker, a teacher, and everything else within. I've never met so many highly qualified people in my life. People that have to get student visas, right? So we don't have that. So we're able, I guess, to provide an outcome, the fastest to obtain PR. So occasionally a fear would be, okay, so my visa's expiring, my student visa is expiring, but what happens if my 482 gets rejected? So a lot of the time, if it gets rejected, it's not because of the skill, because the skill is quite clear. So someone will have the experience, they don't. It's because immigration now, they've increased their refusal quota, so basically they get to a point where they're nitpicking applications, and you would lodge 3 applications that are the same, 2 will get approved, 1 will get rejected. So what is it the end of the world if someone gets rejected a 482?
No, it's not, because we can appeal, which is something we do a lot, and they usually refuse on genuineness. So at the nomination stage, the employer stage, where they don't believe the business actually needs this person or needs this occupation to work for them. So then we appeal, and at the appeal stage, we have a much stronger chance to win, because I feel like from what we've been seeing, the tribunal takes a very different approach than immigration. They really understand that there is a skill shortage in Australia and that small businesses are suffering, and they want to help employers. And so if it doesn't go through at the first step, which is like immigration, we can take it to the appeal and then still turn the situation around.
We're pretty much overturning a very high, more than 80%.
Yeah.
Julie, you've had quite a few wins at the AAT.
Well, I've had nomination refused.
Yeah.
Yes, but I've touched wood. I've never had AAT refused.
Yeah.
So that shows you how immigration and the tribunal works completely differently.
Exactly, and it's really weird because they normally, they should follow the same pathway, So, but it seems like they are fighting against each other.
Well, that's another story. I bring in Marcus. So me and Marcus were traveling from Fiji a few weeks ago, and we met some very nice border officials at the airport. And it turned into a bit of a scuffle because Marcus is an Australian citizen, and on the card there was a certain area you're not supposed to tick. You don't have to answer if you're not an Australian citizen. And Marcus didn't answer.
That was coming back into
questions.
Australia.
Yeah, we don't need to go through those questions. We didn't. And then when we got to the front, the lady got quite frustrated, and she's like, "Well, you don't have your Australian passport, so just answer the questions." And it turned into a bit of an argument.
Oh, really?
So I don't think you guys have told you guys. So
You're fighting with the border now?
I was fighting with the border force. Yeah, we got pulled aside.
It got a little bit crazy at the end.
But so you traveled with his Brazilian passport back into
But he
Australia?
hadn't had his Australian passport yet, but he's an Australian citizen.
So he's allowed to come back
have your passport.
If you are a citizen, you don't need to answer those 2 questions.
So you are a citizen.
I am a citizen, but I had my Spanish passport on me. So
and the lady at the front got annoyed at you. Well, if you're not traveling with your passport, just answer them anyway.
Yes.
And I was trying to explain, I go, but he's an Australian citizen. He doesn't need to, and you can't ask him. And then she got frustrated why he was traveling without an Australian passport. And then we had another person who was even on another level come. Luckily, there was finally a manager.
Oh my goodness.
Well, there was one manager, but luckily the manager's manager was calm and educated. So I use that example as like a tribunal. Unfortunately, case officers we deal with immigration are like the first person we dealt with, right? No logic,
No logic.
right? bottom of the barrel. They needed a job. Go work for Home Affairs, right? And then the tribunal's like the third manager.
Yeah, that's it.
No, well, like, will show us, you know, like the decisions sometimes you get, you think, God,
It's frustrated.
Yeah.
It's like so frustrated.
And then the third one, the manager, we finally got, and she was quite calm and she got the point that they had made a mistake. I like the tribunal. So tribunals a lot of the time are ex-federal members of parliament, lawyers, people with very decorated backgrounds. Like, for example, Peter Papadopoulos, which I've met personally a few times, is a tribunal member, and he is a very good accredited immigration law specialist, had his own law firm, and a company that taught lawyers about immigration law, and then he became a tribunal member. So when you're talking to a tribunal member or discussing the matter, you don't have to break down and explain to him that this microphone is black. Why is it black?
Exactly.
You move on to the parts that are actually relevant.
Yeah.
And I feel like at the tribunal, they have to raise the issues, discuss them with you, and then give you more time.
Yeah.
They facilitate the application, as opposed to immigration, where it feels like, depending on if the person's had a bad day or not, or
Totally.
it doesn't. There's no logic behind it now. And this is not just us speaking. We're speaking to a lot of people, other accredited lawyers that have the same problem. So, coming back to what we were saying, as long as you're willing to fight it away, we find that we will eventually get a positive outcome in most cases.
Yeah, yes, at the tribunal.
Yeah, I think because we take a lot of cases that are not straightforward.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just ticking the box. You need to think why this position fits in the company and why this person is qualified and skilled. Yeah. And because it's not following probably the protocol. Yeah, just tick, tick, tick.
Yeah.
Then I think, something might be wrong. And then they just refuse.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sometimes
so they don't question.
We had a Michelin star chef that had about 12 years experience working for a fine dining restaurant, and I was just confused what they were paying us for, because I said, well, this is just a lodgement of a normal case, right? We unfortunately, we're not the ones we don't get many of those, you know. What we get is situations where the business is a new business, or it's a startup, or the person comes from a background where he's got a lot of different types of experience, and you need to bring it all together. You know, they might have worked for themselves, so you need to assist them. And having like United Nations at our office, everyone's speaking a different language, right? Really helps us, I guess, move those. So I think a lot of the fear that comes from other migration agents sticking to student visas, which they can't anymore, is the fact that basically they don't look at what the person has a right, so he has a right to a sponsor visa. They just think, I could be rejected, so better not try. But the bridging visa on a refusal of a sponsor visa is actually better than most other visas, like a student visa or a tourist visa, because you've got work rights.
And it's longer as well, because the student visa refusal, like the appeal is going to happen faster. And also, I want to say another thing regarding student visas refusals. It's much harder to win at the appeal a student visa refusal than an employer-sponsored visa refusal. And I've had appeals for student visa refusals, and the member takes a bit more, like a stricter vision, and they're like, okay, are you really a genuine student? How is this course going to help you when you go back to your country, blah, blah, blah. So it's harder to win a student visa refusal than an employer-sponsored visa refusal. So I feel like if you have to choose between a weak student visa and a weak employer-sponsored visa, I would go for a weak employer-sponsored visa, because in the long term, we can turn this around.
And that's a very good point, because what I find from there is, and the reason you hit the nail on the head, is with a student visa, the person basically has to convince the department or the tribunal that they don't want to stay in Australia, or that their current intention is temporary.
Which is not true.
Which in most cases is not true. It's not. And the agents find a way to twist it and that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, you could have a great case of studying and a great course, but if they don't believe you're temporary, which then cuts out a large section, because they look at the applicants, and most of the clients are from either Colombia, India, Brazil, China. You know, we get people from countries that obviously have a lower economic advantage. And then when they look at that already puts them back 50%. So I believe there's an extra 50% rejection on a student visa. With a sponsor visa, with a 186 visa, with a training visa, they do not have that requirement to pretend that they want to go home. So we don't have to deceive the tribunal or deceive immigration and say, oh yeah, this guy wants to come here and work in this field and bring his family and
go
relocate
back.
to a better country.
Yeah.
But right at the end of it, he wants to go home.
Yeah.
We're actually at the tribunal saying, this guy's here, he's a carpenter, he's got a great job, they're going to employ him, and he wants to stay here, and one day he wants to open his own business. So we've had that a lot of the time, like, what's your future plan? And then the tribunal member's going, okay, so I've got a husband and wife, it's not costing us anything because they're paying insurance, they don't get any benefits, she's also working, he's working as a carpenter, we need carpenters, I have to be crazy not to let these guys stay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? This employs a building company, unlike the immigration, which might turn around and go, sorry, the address is at home, so I'm going to reject it.
Yeah.
Right, without asking for an explanation. So what we look at is, when we look at your case, we will put in a tribunal plan, all fixed costs, and significantly discount appeals if they use us for the previous case, because we're confident that we can go through. And we have been since we opened up in 2009. So I think like if we look at it that way, it's still the best way to stay in Australia is through sponsorship or a partner visa if you've got a partner.
For sure. But if they have a student visa refusal, they should still come to us. We can still help.
And another myth to break, so if you've had a student visa refusal and you're waiting for the student visa and you've got the work rights, remember, we can still apply for a sponsor visa during that appeal.
Yeah.
What I see a lot is people come to us with the end of their appeal and they've got to go home and basically looking at their case going, well, last 2 years you're now working in this job and you could have been sponsored, and they're like, well, my agent didn't tell me that. So a lot of agents don't know you can actually still lodge other applications, even though you're Section 48 barred, by just getting a bridging visa B and traveling offshore.
Yeah. And it's really common at the moment to do that.
Yeah.
So while they're appealing, so go offshore, we apply, and then they go back. So it's easy. It seems like difficult, but
so
it's actually
if you're in that situation, remember, it's almost like cheating. You don't have to cheat on your current lawyer. You can sneakily just put in an appointment, have a swipe right on the Tinder date, and before you decide to leave your lawyer,
Come to us.
Come to us first, flirt with us a little bit, see if you like what we're about, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah. So
How is it working, the consultations at the moment?
So really good. We're quite busy, but generally you can get a consultation booked within 24 hours.
24 hours.
Sometimes the same day. We are opening out of hours and weekend consult soon. So we are working on that with our partners. So of course, Simona, who couldn't be here today, is in Perth, obviously. That's why she can't be here. So working with Simona, Juliana and Julie, as well as Ameline, who's our migration director, to work on an out of hours system, because we want to make sure that first consultation, the facilitation of that first consultation is very important, and we can work with you. The other thing that's included in a solved migration consultation is, once you've had that first consultation, which usually is about 30 or 40 minutes, we allow free follow-up. So we won't let you, like other law firms or migration agencies, just have a bit of information and have to go on the stars. So if you meet us and we go through some plans, and then after 3 months you have an employer, and you need to now discuss, or we need to discuss, that's all included in that first consultation.
Yeah.
We'll call you back, we will call your employer, and we will try and convince the employer for you without charging, and you only pay the fixed cost of what it costs if we go ahead with the case. So even though it's a consultation, sometimes we get 3-4 follow-up phone calls after.
Yeah.
Follow-ups,
Julia.
WhatsApps, everything. Emails.
The other with
we are
they can speak in
all on.
Portuguese with
Yes.
Juliana, and then French with Julie, and then
And
all the other
Spanish.
ones.
Yeah.
And immigration is federal law, so basically, even if you're in Sydney, Melbourne, you can still book with anyone, including Julie and Juliana, to go through your case.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, because I get a lot of questions like this, like clients from Sydney or Melbourne saying, oh, you are in the Gold Coast, can you actually help me? Do you know how it works? I'm like, yeah, well, the law is the same everywhere in Australia.
Well, Juliana
so-
used to live in Sydney.
Yeah.
Worked for us in our Sydney office. And you know what? I'm going to something crazy. I don't know if they're going to include this, but do you remember our first office in Australia Square? The big office.
Yeah, big office.
We are looking now for a new office. That exact office is available.
Ah,
And it's been
you kidding
renovated
me?
with a brand new
Wow.
layout. The exact same office.
No way.
Yes.
That's
It's
in
got
the-
a really
that's
nice
in the
layout.
CBD.
Yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, Australia Square.
We've lost Marcus.
I think we could talk about the RPLs. it has been a
Oh,
lot.
please talk about it. You are the expert
Yeah,
on this
RPL
topic.
has been like quite. I don't know. I think 50% of my clients they all want RPL. I don't know how. I think Ameline's video was very good.
Yeah.
So everyone hit me with, "Can I have the RPL? Can I have the certificate? Can I
Also
have this?
because
Can I
you
have
deal with Brazilians, and Brazilians is a country that needs RPL.
Yeah, but the problem with that also is that when she said everyone can get the certificate, it hit some people like electrician and the plumbers.
No electricians or plumbers. So
So they
everyone
are.
except electricians
How
or plumbers.
can I get it information?
So can
Yeah,
we
yeah,
need
yeah.
to be very careful with
this.
this.
How we can get an RPL in what situation?
Use example
we
of a
should?
carpenter.
Okay, normally carpenters and
From Brazil?
most of trades, yeah, and
Okay.
from Brazil and from any other country, if they have 1 year full-time experience in Australia or offshore or overseas, so we can get a reference letter from the company that they worked, plus some photos, videos, and then we send to the college. And then the college will issue the certificate in like 4 or 5 weeks maximum.
And then you use that certificate to then apply for employer sponsorship.
Exactly. So that meets with the qualification. So the applicant will have the qualification with the RPL plus 2 years of experience or 1 year from November.
So just to clarify that point, the company, so this started, I think, God, this was 2013, 14, we did our first RPLs. Because it's so big, we've set up our own company now, SolveQ. So solveq.com.au, it's part of Solve Migration. And we now, what we do is we get wholesale rates with the colleges, the RTOs, right? So they're registered training organizations. The rates we get are so significantly low that after we add our margin on top, it's still around the same price as going through a school directly. The difference is with us is we've got our own writers in-house. So the reason we're able to do everything fixed costs, like you go to a law firm, sometimes they're charging $600 an hour, but we do fixed costs. Because with the parts that are not legal, like with the RPL, we send that offshore. So they're going to assist you with your templates, with speaking to your employer, holding your hand. And then we basically put, thanks for joining us against Marcus, we're talking about qualifications. We basically provide a guarantee, so a money back guarantee on that, because we have that relationship with the RTO, that they're willing to only charge us if they can get the qualification. So when we go down to carpenter, now an enrollment, so if you want to study carpentry, usually it comes with a Cert 4, that package is $30,000. Like if you want to go and study it for 2 years, you're spending $30,000.
Yeah, it's 33 plus building 34, building something.
Yeah.
And it's going to take more than 2 years.
So what do we do with a carpenter, for example?
So we take 1 year experience
Yeah.
of him and a few photos and a couple videos, plus ID documents. So we get all together, draft the letters, organize everything, send to the RTO, and they will issue the certificate.
And because that's the same, basically same documents we need for the visa.
Exactly. Then
we're
we can
able
use.
to include that as kind of like package and bring the price down.
Yes.
City with 3 carpentry, I think they're charging around $3,500. I'm not sure exactly. That's 10% of the cost you're paying at college.
Yeah,
10%.
exactly. Yeah,
And you're getting
and
it
so
in
much
2 months.
faster.
Yeah.
And also, it's everything legal because people are really scared to say, "I'm gonna buy a diploma," and I say, "No." Well, if you say like that, it seems like illegal, but it is legal. Yeah, because we are using your work experience to provide you a reference letter, and it's legalized in Australia. So
And we actually
can
have Australian clients. So we have clients.
Oh yeah. They
Australian
just
one.
won the certificate.
Yeah.
Exactly. So most of people at the moment, they are just asking for the certificate to have a qualification, not because they need to use for the 4H visa or for a sponsorship, but because they want to have. Because sometimes when you go and look for a job, they ask, "Do you have a qualification?" And they say no. It's sometimes it seems like they are not very professional, but at the moment, many people are asking for RPL just to find a job. So they have a qualification to find a job. No.
So, okay, now that stems us now to the changes in November.
Yep.
Very exciting. So for anyone who was, were you around when you didn't need work experience? You probably remember that, right? At all?
That was a good time.
Yes.
remember
Oh,
that?
I got. My husband got the.
That was
the
good.
All you needed
sponsorship.
was a diploma.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, work
that's how
experience.
he got
One
it.
of the two.
Yeah.
So if we go back to I
That's
think
so good.
2017,
13.
That's
Yeah, it was
14.
13, 14, yeah.
You could, with any qualification, apply for a sponsor visa. So basically, so if you got finished a diploma in hospitality and didn't work one day, and you couldn't even fry a piece of
Could
bread.
be restaurant manager
You
still.
could be a restaurant
can be.
manager, you could be a chef.
Yeah.
Obviously, they changed that for obvious reasons to 2 years. So the problem that occurred is when it was 2 years, which is now, but don't worry, we've got some good news. That meant 4 years part-time.
For part-time.
So when
Student visa.
someone first comes to Australia, that's fine because it's the last 5 years. They can bring that experience from overseas.
Yeah.
But if someone's been in Australia 5 years
Yeah,
and you're on a student visa, 4 years part-time becomes... No, sorry, 2 years full-time becomes 4 years
Four
part-time,
years part-time.
which is very difficult.
Very.
Yes.
Now, what is going to happen in November?
November.
Woohoo!
Good thing. So in November, we're going. So I want to clarify the changes because I think there's going to be a lot of confusion because the work experience is going to be 1 year from 2 years. It does not mean that if you only have 1 year work experience and no qualification, you can apply for 482. It means if you have qualification plus 1 year, you can apply for 482. If you do not have any qualification, you'll still need the 3 years if you're a carpenter or 5 years if you're going for an occupation that requires a bachelor degree.
And that's why we got the RPL. So
Yeah,
you
that's
got
why the RPLs come in. Because
that's
now,
it.
now the RPL is even more important. 'Cause
Exactly.
instead of 3 years, you drop down to 1 year.
one.
You have the qualification, and then it's happy days.
So it's going to make things a lot easier to be able to apply for 482.
So from 23rd of November.
this year.
This
So if
year.
your visa expires end of the year, we just wait for the 23rd of November and we apply under the new rules.
And what's great is these requirements, so the English requirements and the skills requirements are time of decision requirements.
Yes.
So if your visa is expiring and you're short for 1 or 2 months, we can apply. That bridging visa will usually give you full work rights. You have that time to do the English. Worst case scenario, they say no because the case officer doesn't want to wait. When you appeal, that time will also count. So you can build your case, which allows you to provide more documents for the business, more documents for you, and have time to do English.
I just had a
Yeah.
case refused because the client couldn't get the English.
Yeah.
So I told him, let's appeal the decision. When we got to the hearing, we present your English and we're good to go.
And that comes back to another decision that Julie said. So in the past, you have this thing where I'm going to get my student visa, so am I better off getting a student visa approved or getting a sponsor visa that's got a bit of risk? Now, you're probably going to get rejected anyway, right? So
Yep.
if you look at your student visa, the chances are very low. So if you've got 2 cases, your student visa and a sponsor visa, and you know your student visa is going to get rejected, the bridging visa from the rejection of a sponsor visa is a much better bridging visa to be on.
It's longer
Right.
as well.
Because you're not needing to comply, because you're not applying for a student visa where you need to keep studying, if you don't want to study, obviously, which a lot of people don't. You're building your work experience, you're building your English, and the company's improving. And sometimes by the time you get to the tribal, that's if it's rejected. Like in most cases, it's approved.
Yeah.
But if it's rejected, you've gone to the tribal going, remember, it's been another year, it's been another 2 years. And my client here has been working systematically full-time for the employer at the correct salary, now has another 2 years experience. How can this position not be genuine?
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And you can work full time most of the time on the bridging visa, waiting for your appeal. So that is much better.
Gotta believe.
And you could also,
Tem que acreditar.
Tem que acreditar.
I just want to say one more thing. You can also look for another sponsor during that appeal. If you're seeing that actually, you know what, I found a better opportunity, you can
Yeah.
and lodge that offshore, come back in and, you know, withdraw the appeal when
Yeah.
it's granted. Right?